Many people have asked, are Mormons Christian? And for the most part, I'd say yes, of course they are. Except there's a small part of me that wonders, but were they always? Perhaps they are now, but during the early years of Mormonism, I think that's debatable. You see, there was a teaching in the Mormon church called the blood atonement. And what that means is, a person can commit a sin so bad that Jesus Christ's own blood cannot atone for it. Instead, the blood of the person who committed the sin must be shed. Now, this wasn't always done by the person himself, though it often was. But it seems more common that church authorities sent others to perform this secret ordinance. Hundreds of people were literally murdered during the Utah Reformation, and through Brigham Young's teaching of the blood atonement. One of the wives of Brigham Young even said that most of these murders went unpunished and untried, because members and non-members were terrified of church authorities. She goes on to say that there exists an already appallingly long list of men and women foully dealt with and sent into eternity without a moment's warning, for no crime at all except for daring to differ, if ever so slightly, from those in authority. Another writer during this period simply stated, "The death list is too long for me to venture to give it." But they tried, and if you'll allow me, I'm going to list off some of the names given by Brigham Young's wife, or ex-wife, Eliza Young, and the writer M.W. Montgomery. Sometimes they list a crime, but more often it's just their name.
Mr. Hatton, Eliza's cousin-in-law.
His crime? Being a Gentile and wanting to move to California.
Jesse Earl.
His crime? No idea, but somehow his sins were past forgiveness.
Alma Babbitt.
His crime was that he wanted to return to the States.
John Evan.
His crime was that he shot a man in Council Bluffs, and after visiting Brigham Young, he begged for his crime to be atoned for in the usual way.
Duff Potter.
His crime was apostasy.
William Parrish and Beatson Parrish.
Their crime was also apostasy.
Dr. J. King Robinson.
His crime was being a popular Gentile.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones and their son.
These three were suspected from following from the church.
Mr. Lobbs. Mr. Bake. John Aiken. Thomas Aiken. John Atchard. Andrew J. Jones. Horace Buckland. Mr. Yates. Franklin McNeil.
He tried to sue Brigham Young for false imprisonment and was killed in his hotel doorway.
Sergeant Pike. Mr. Arnold. Mr. Drown. Price Bryan. William Bryan. Mr. Brassfield. James Cowdy, his wife, and their child. Mr. and Mrs. Margetts. Lieutenant Gunnison and his party. Mr. Forbes. Andrew Bernard. A woman was killed by her own husband. Mr. Morris. Mr. Banks. And 4 women who belonged to the party of Morris and Banks. Isaac Potter. Charles Wilson. John Walker.
The blood atonement is probably the very worst part of Mormonism.